finds them on the ground. So it really is a horrific state for migrating birds. And the estimate from the Audubon Society and other research estimates is that 100 million to 1 billion birds die from collisions with buildings in North America each year. And that is just in North America. So you can imagine worldwide the impact. So when we talk about songbird decline and the collapse of songbirds and all of that, light is a dramatic part of that. The other thing that gets impacted, surprisingly, are trees. So there's some pictures here. You can see the trees that branches are growing up against the building. When trees are exposed to artificial light at night, they bud earlier, they lose their leaves later than with the artificial light. And so the overall health of the tree declines. So when you, like oftentimes you'll see, like a little strip mall and they plant these little trees and they don't do very well, or trees under a street light. You see there's a tree under a street light and a tree next to it isn't. Oftentimes you can see a difference between the growth patterns of those. So it really does shorten their lifespan and then actually creates a more dangerous situation because they're not as strong and not as healthy. Plus they don't look as good. You can tell that you can see the one on the bottom, there's a light right below the tree on the left-hand side. And you can see how it has totally changes the whole growth characteristics based on the one on the other side. Sorry about that. Okay, and then energy waste. So energy waste is an incredible amount because when light shines straight up into the sky, it's not getting where it needs to be. So we add more lights, we burn more energy, and the estimate is that $3 to $7 billion nationwide is wasted on lights that aren't being effective in their job. They're not providing the security that you need. They're not lighting your way because most of that light's actually going up into the atmosphere and not being down on the ground where you need it. And then that can burn an additional 21 million tons of CO2. So that is an incredible amount of money that we could be saving by not doing that. And then human health, this has been in the news quite a bit lately because of our phones. So we know that light has, it disrupts our sleep cycle. And when you are trying to sleep and you have a room with light in it, you're not going to get as good of a sleep. We know people that work the night shift. This is, documented over time, definitely. So the American Medical Association issued recommendations to shield street lights and to use light that is 3000 K or lower in order to kind of help reduce the overall light pollution in communities and have healthier populations. So one of the things that we hear a lot about is safety and making sure we have lights for safety. So just because you have lights outside doesn't necessarily mean that you're safe. You have to have the right kind of lights. So this gives you an example. So here is a home where they have a light that's shining from the side of the building. And in the upper portion, you don't really see anybody in that gate. But when your hand blocks the light and your eye can work correctly or efficiently, you can see it's actually a person was hiding right very close to the light and wasn't visible at all. So making sure that you're using well-designed lights makes things safer, and it reduces the amount of light that you need. So it saves you money and it makes you safer. So here's an example of how fast light pollution is increasing, 2% each year. And Dark Sky has a tool. You can go in and put your own neighborhood in and see what your light increase has been. So you can see the increase just from the 50s to now is just staggering across the United States. And here is an example of Olivet. So we have July 2012. This is the Highway 70 corridor. You can see St. Louis, Columbia, Kansas City. Then a few years later, in May 2016, you can see some increases. But then it's phenomenal when you look at 2020 and see the rural impacts too. So now almost all of Missouri is blanketed by extra light. And only 2% or 2 out of 10 people on Earth can see the Milky Way, which is just bizarre. And I don't think I saw it myself until I was probably in my teens. I probably didn't see it that I can remember. There's a very interesting anecdote that happened in 1994 when an earthquake took out all the lights in the LA basin. The Griffith Observatory started getting a lot of calls from people because the earthquake hit at 3 a.m. And when people went outside, they saw the Milky Way for the first time and they didn't know what it was. So they called and said, what am I seeing in the sky? What's this glittery, strange silvery cloud in the night sky? And of course it was the Milky Way. So that just is amazing to think that that many people have never been able to see it. Here's an example, again, of the LA basin. 1908, this is a 1-hour exposure taken from the Mount Wilson Observatory, which is 20 miles from downtown Los Angeles. And here's a photo from 2017 with the same exposure. So it really illustrates the increase we've had in light pollution. So we know we have a problem. What can we do? I apologize, I'm getting a text message. I just wanna, okay, all right. That's just Barb saying good night. She's gonna catch up with everybody tomorrow. So there's a simple solution that we can do to make sure that we're safe, that we have the light we need, and yet not have these as many negative impacts. So the first thing is just shielding the lights, making sure that they shine down instead of shining up. So you can see an example of a fire station there. Once they swapped out their wall lights with ones that were were IDA approved, you can see the immediate difference. What you notice too is that not only are the lights shining down, but you can see so much more detail in the photo on the right than the photo on the left. So it shows that your eye is actually able to better depict what's happening at night when you have a better selected light there. Then the other thing is the Kelvin, that 3000 K I mentioned earlier. So Kelvin is the color temperature. So warmer lights, warmer white lights are much more beneficial than getting up into that blue range that is so bad on our phones and is so bad in the new LED street lights with birds and with insects. And then the other thing that's kind of complex is this intensity and warranting. And what this is when your light is shining down on the ground, it could be that it's hitting the ground and bouncing back up and still creating sky glow. And what that means is you want to use the correct intensity of light for the situation. So if you're putting a light out on your front porch or on your garage, you certainly don't want it to be the same magnitude as a stadium. So there's different uses, and you want to make sure you're selecting the right. So just similar to saying selecting the right tool for the job, you want to select the correct light bulb for the job. And then IDA has their symbol placed on light fixtures and light bulbs. So when you go shopping, you can look for them. It's a really easy way to make sure that what you're purchasing is going to be effective and help you out. And then in Olivet, we have decided, working forward with the Parks Master Plan and with our practices, that we want to be a good neighbor. So we are going to use lights where they're necessary. We're going to make sure that they're IDA approved and we're following best practices. But if there's areas where we can keep it dark, we're going to keep it dark. And for those of you that were in those, a lot of the public meetings for the Park Master Plans, so many residents, particularly around Warson Park, asked a lot of questions about lighting, and we're very concerned and wanted to make sure we were not going to be putting in, for sure, stadium lights, field lights, or lights along the pathways and things like that. So we definitely have a lot of residents that are aware of light pollution and want to make sure that we're following that in our parks. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to, or I'm going to come out of, see if I can figure out how to do this. I'm going to come out of the presentation, come back over. Actually, I can just do this. There, okay. Come back over here, and we have our application that was in your packet, and this is an opportunity for you to ask any questions you'd like. And Stephanie is, you can see actually a picture of Stephanie right here. This is the light meter that's out at Stacy Park, and you're welcome to ask any questions about the process, about International Dark Sky, or about what it means with us certifying our park.
Would you like to introduce Stephanie to the commission?
Yes. Yeah. So Stephanie is a resident. She lives over on Hill, and I met Stephanie with one of our first Weed Warrior forays. So she's been volunteering with us for 5 years. So thank you for attending, Stephanie.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, so we have two things. So this is a permanent, well, not permanent. I mean, I'll take it down eventually, but this is what they call a fixed sky meter. And it takes a reading every 5 minutes. And I go up to Stacy Park, I download the data on my laptop, and I've been sending it to students at Truman State, and they're doing a project that's actually part of NASA, and they're trying to figure out all the lights around the state of Missouri. I think there's 17 of these meters now around the state of Missouri. And then once they get a reading on how, where the bright spots are and how bright it is, then it's like, okay, now what can we do about it? So this, I mean, it's part of the application, but it's not really. And then I have a little handheld meter that on clear nights, every once in a while, I've been walking up to Stacy Park, and I take night meetings. I take light readings all around the park, and then that will go into the application. So, and just it is kind of neat. Now that I've been going up to Stacy Park, to stand in the center of the field, and if you look at the sky for a while, more stars come out. And I mean, you can't see a lot because of the sky glow from Bayer and the Danforth Center, but it's pretty good. And it's neat because it's fairly quiet. It's just kind of neat. So anyway, does anybody have any, I kind of digressed from the application, but does anybody have any questions?
I have one. Not so. If once we get accepted and the parks get certified, is the next step to then, I know earlier in the presentation you mentioned about backyard lights and all. Is there that we want to Is that the next step, that we want to encourage families to change the lights in their backyards and their front yards, or?
Well, a component of being certified is that we just have to provide education to the public about why we're doing it. And that, so Stephanie's written an article to go in the city newsletter. If this is a recommendation and if the council takes it up. So we do education, absolutely. And we can also offer webinars, or once we have in-person learning again, we can have workshops with IDA speakers to tell people about it. But I think that part of it is just making sure that we are enacting the best practices for the Parks and Recreation Department. Mm-hmm. There are cities that adopt the lighting guidelines as part of their planning, but that is not something that we're advocating at this time. But maybe over time, as people learn more about it and understand how easy it is to take steps to mitigate it, then that may naturally occur down the line or more organically. But for now, it's really about our parks and our best practices.
And I think also, if anyone wants to see a picture coming off of my park and off of my house, looking at a commercial area, I can provide an opportunity to see two options here in Olivet, where one has adhered to the guidelines and one has not.
Yeah, and just to add, to emphasize what Beverly said, you meeting the guidelines or the standards doesn't mean zero lights. You can still have what's regarded as non-light polluting lights. And, and I think Beverly's looking at putting those in at the community center and in the community center parking lot. Mm-hmm. So it's like she said, the light doesn't go up. It's not wasted light, and you can do a lot of different things. If you have to have a fairly bright light for some reason, well then, you can put it on a timer. There's a lot of different things, you can do. So all the lights on the right side, those type of fixtures, and then like she said, and as long as they're low energy lights, you can still have lights.
Right, right. I think oftentimes that's a misconception as we're saying we don't want lights, and that's certainly not the case. I mean, lights are important. They provide a lot of functions. I certainly don't like driving on roads without lights. It makes it a lot safer, makes it safer to walk at night for a whole host of reasons. But, we're having issues right now at the Park House. So we're swapping out those lights with motion sensor lights. And that's actually one of the number one things the police department recommends for security is having motion sensor lights. So as we don't want to spend a lot of money on the Park House because it's getting torn down, but we're putting some motion sensors out over there.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because the police will actually, there's been studies done that lighting up areas or lighting up your yard or your front door doesn't make it safer. It essentially what you're doing, you're lighting it up so that the bad guys can see what there is to steal, and you're lighting it up for them because you're not going to be up at 2 a.m. watching who's walking around your yard. But like if you have a motion sensor, that scares them and they're like, oh, what did that light come on? They don't know if you're watching them or not.
Right, right.
So yeah, so part of this, I mean, the hope, like Beverly said, we're not mandating anything else. We're not saying people need to get rid of their lights. We're not saying we're going to change the city ordinances. But part of the effort is just to educate people, just to say, hey, look, because people just don't think about it. They just don't think about light pollution and all the detrimental effects it has. And so, and that is part of the requirement, is to have some kind of community education. And
Right.
then what people want to do with it, that's up to them, but we're hoping that they'll change some of their habits.
Right, right. And yeah, and
Okay,
as I talked about in here
so-
too, that, as we're increasing our biodiversity in the parks and we're creating these habitats, we're really hoping to attract more birds. So we really want to make sure that it's safe for them and then safe for people that are using the parks. So we want to make sure, I don't want anybody to think we're making the parks safe for animals and not for humans, because our residents are of utmost importance to us too.
Okay, so as I see what the ask of the commission is at this point is to move this application to the International Dark Sky, or the Missouri Dark Sky application to become a dark sky park, urban park, and forward that to the city council to affirm that, because that is one of the steps that needs to be taken to be certified in this. Is that correct?
Yes,
Both
yes.
Stephanie and
Yes, so
Beverly?
what would be great is if the Parks and Rec Commission could take a vote on a recommendation on whether to approve or not approve the application for Stacy Park. And then it would be forwarded on to City Council for their consideration.
Jim, if I could interrupt, I still had a question or two. Is that okay at this point?
Sure. I was going to ask if there were questions from the commission.
Thank you. So Stephanie, thank you very much. This is great. And Bev, your presentation was just awesome. It makes me just want to jump right in, and we need to have ordinances and all kinds of stuff. But my question is, can you explain why just Stacy Park? Is there a reason why the other parks are not included? Is it just because that's just the first step and that's what you do?
That's correct. Yeah,
okay.
It's the first step. It's the first step. And it's Stacy Park, when it goes through its renovation, isn't calling for any new lights on it. Whereas Warson Park will be getting new lights. So I didn't want to do certification at Warson, and then we put in the new street lights, and that'll change all the light readings. So I'd like to have all the parks certified, but Stacy was our first stepping stone.
Okay, that makes sense. So
Yes,
that tails on to my next question then. With the new the new community center, what consideration now is being placed on that exterior lighting? Was that always going to be lighting that's going to be low light polluting, or Or is it time to make some changes
Yes.
still?
No, it is. And they're actually the best practices that a lot of architectural firms are already using. It's part of the green building mandates as well. And even though we're not a LEED certified building, we're certainly trying to use as many green practices as we can. And so because of just the fact that it uses less energy and it costs less, it becomes a really important component of the community center.
Thank you.
And in reality, I think the Olivet ordinances mandate this. If you begin to look specifically as it relates to commercial areas adjacent to residential areas, I think it already does. There's some things that could be worked on, but I think we're almost required as part of the community center to do that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, and that brings up a good point, because I think Beverly talked about, I can't remember what you call it, like light trespass, because I think you probably check to make sure, but I think the city of Kirkwood got sued by residents because they put in a new football field and they put in incredibly bright lights, and all the people surrounding it, it lit up their whole house.
Yep.
So
That was the School of Vianney put in lights, and an inspector did not read the foot candles off the backside of the poles and where they were facing. And so far, the city is still winning that suit, but I don't know how. But yeah.
Yeah, well, and to say Don was part of the Parks Department in Kirkwood prior to being.
But that wasn't the park. It was.
Yeah,
It was,
but
No,
yeah,
I
Don.
understand. No, I understand, but
yeah, it was Vianney High School versus this. Well, the lights were put in at Vianney High School.
yeah, well aware of it. But I think one of the important pieces of this is related to the parks at this point. It gets a little crazy if you begin to broaden it, but I think this is a very good first step.
Yeah, and it's really, it's good for us. And again, I said, I am not advocating for residences or anybody. I just think that for us being responsible for the land that's under our care, that we should be doing it.
Yep. So at this point, are there other questions from the commission of Stephanie and or Beverly?
I did have one more. What is the education plan a part of this? Like if a homeowner sees this and goes, you know what, I want to change the lights on my home because I saw this thing at Stacy. Like what's the idea there of helping to educate?
Well, I'm going to have information on our website, and we'll be doing a newsletter article in Olivet Life. And then we'll have some sort of public workshop of just, the Olivet and Bloom has been in talks with the department about bringing back their lecture series, and they're still trying to figure out how to do that in the time of COVID, but this would definitely be one of those topics that they'd like to cover.
Good. Okay, so I would entertain a motion that the Parks Commission recommend to approve Stacy Park as an urban dark sky certified park to the city council for to be affirmed by them that this is something that they would want to do. Probably better wording than that, but
You actually, I wrote the recommendation is actually the motion you can make. You can just read the recommendation.
okay. Recommendation to approve the Stacy Park Urban Dark Sky Certification application and forward to the city council for consideration. Do I hear a motion?
Looks like Rob moved in the chat. Does that count? Oh, and I see Ed talking. Ed, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Yeah, yes, I would like to make a motion that we recommend and approve the Stacy Park Urban Dark Skies certification application and forward to city council.
Great.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
And all in favor, say
Aye.
aye. All opposed? Okay, it is carried. Okay,
Great.
we will move on to the park master plan and
Thank
the-
you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much for your efforts, Stephanie. I will move on to the park master plan implementation and progress report. One of the things that I can say is we're meeting probably at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, on looking at different aspects of Prop C. And in doing that, we are, there's a lot of detail out there. And one of the things that I have struggled with is making sure that the commissioners are up to date on it without inundating people, because I know many of you have jobs that you're working in and so forth, but providing the level of detail that you need. I know that last month we talked a lot about the community center and some about Stacy. What I would like to look at this month is looking at where we are from our master plan and where some of these conceptual plans are moving forward. One of the things that I did do, I talked to Keisha about how people were being, how board members in Ladue were being informed of the building projects, because they've undertaken just massive numbers of buildings, and how the commission, how the board knows what's going on without getting into some of the details, because so much of this is just nitty gritty, just hammering out square footage and those kinds of things. But we want to make sure that the commission feels very much involved in the process and some of the decision making. And also the council has been involved because of the meetings that I've been in. Mayor Springer has also been very much involved, but at some level it's our professionals, project managers, the design professionals that we have engaged to do this. And so what I think we need to do is maybe look back at where we are with where we were with the master plan, and then kind of how we're moving forward and looking at some of the concepts that we're looking at moving forward. So Bev, I would turn it over to you to talk about some of the vision, kind of to bring people up to date. I think a lot of the data has been sent to you as far as where things were. I guess it was 2017, to look at it, making sure that we're still on track, and then also some of the very exciting conceptual plans as we move forward to projects that will probably be completed in 2022. So.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you, Jim. I've started working on a micro website to be able to push out project information to the public. And part of that, I created timelines, and I wanted them to look like the timelines, the same style we used during the park master plan. So it kind of had that continuity, because this really is a continuation of that same timeline, because now we're implementing the park master plan. So these I prepared for the Zoom with the mayor, and it shows the end of schematic design is pretty much where we are. So since our last meeting, we haven't really had a meeting on the community center because it's in design development. So right now the architects and engineers are providing those very detailed drawings to the schematic design. And when we have that first initial design of the design detail level, I will, we'll definitely bring that back to the commission. Our last couple of meetings have really been on the, we've had 2 meetings on the concept plans for Villa, Indian Meadows, and Irveside. So that's what I want to share with you this evening. And you're seeing these raw from the project team. They have not gone to the city council yet because we are still in the phase where we're providing some more direction back to the landscape architects. So you'll see in that email I sent you last night, I have several questions that we really, the project team really wants feedback from the commission on. So it's a pretty exciting time to be looking through that. So I gave you in the packet, you have attachments on with all the background information of the park master plan for each of these parks. And now what I'm going to do is just move on from that. I don't want to go back over all of that because you all know it, you've all read it. So I'm just going to pull up, I'm just doing the parks in alphabetical order. So we're going to start with Indian Meadows. And it's the same format. Let's see if I can get it over onto my screen.
Hey, Beverly, can I ask a question before you jump in here?
Yeah.
So did you send anything that has more detail as to why certain concepts were removed? Or you're going to cover that now?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I gave the reasoning. I just gave them the why, but I can go through that now. So
That would be good as an overview before we jump in there in depth.
Yeah. Well, when we go through it, I'll explain it as we go through, if that's helpful. I'm going to pull up the email I sent because that's where my notes are. So I'm assuming you mean like the Frisbee golf one?
Well, like that or the blend, where you said blend concepts B and C. I'm assuming that references back to the master plan.
No. So I'll explain myself better. Okay. So
Okay.
let me pull up my email so that I'm talking at the same.
That second bullet point was the one that I just didn't know what that was referring to.
Okay, so the main thing that I want to kind of talk about is these concept plans that were presented to us by the landscape architects. They really emphasize that it's a dim sum menu, meaning that you pick what you like, and the next phase of the design will be a blend of what we've seen. Some of them the project team eliminated just because of some of the things. Like for example, we're starting with Indian Meadows Park. So Indian Meadows Park, concept A was removed immediately because disc golf is not compatible for that park. And the landscape architects knew it was a stretch at the time, but they did put it in there. So that was recommended for Stacy Park. Instead, when we looked at the Stacy Park initial concept plans, it was on there as well. They had put it in both locations. So I feel that it's not a good fit at Indian Meadows Park because the park is so narrow. And I think everyone concurred that you wouldn't want to suddenly have all these Frisbees showing up in people's backyards along the backside of Indian Meadows. It just wouldn't be good. So we just removed that as an option and focused on B and C. But what happens with these is the same thing. Can everyone see this? I'm concerned because I think things are getting cut off and I can't see it. Let me.
I'm
The whole
seeing it.
diagram's
You
there.
can see it.
We see
Yeah,
the
the
whole
whole
thing.
diagram is there.
Yep, it's fine.
Notes. So what happens is there's notes at the bottom. So I just want to be cognizant of that so that you can actually see the notes down there, because we in one of our meetings, I completely missed all the notes and we had to go back through and read them again. Okay. So Indian Meadows Park concept planning. So this is just like when we went through with Stacy and Warson, this is the outline of the park. And what's interesting to me is when you see it in this format, you realize just how much land is back here. What I did not know when we started this project is we actually own land on the other side of the river to Pear that I didn't know about. And I also didn't know about this whole stair step thing that happens here behind.
Can you draw that in with a line? The land that we own?
Well, the land that we own is everything that's dark shadowed here. That is the land we own, the dark lines. So this,
Okay.
we own all of this. And this is the spur that goes out to Yucca that got closed off many years ago, honeysuckle grew up and someone just shut the gate one day and we don't know why. I don't know why. I thought maybe Ed might know because he used to live over in that section. Do you remember when it closed, Ed?
Yeah, it was the neighbor that lives there requested it because he didn't want people coming through the gate. And I don't know at the time if people understood that that was parkland. So they
Oh.
just assumed that the park ended there and there was a gate onto private property. And so he had a lock put on it that the city agreed to. And that's the way it's been since I was there in '92. So
Wow. Does that neighbor still live there?
I believe so. They were quite, yeah, I think they do. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've knocked on the door, but I haven't met anybody. Okay. So obviously that's some outreach we're going to have to do. Okay. So this is the original plan that was in the master plan, and the master plans are conceptual plans, meaning that they did a rough sketch of the park. You'll notice the drawings are not super detailed, and they put in the short, long-term and vision goals, but these plans weren't done to technical drawings. So the detailed survey had not been done, the topography had not been done, the water analysis, the tree analysis, all of that hadn't really been done. So that's what we're doing with these master plans. So just as with Stacy Park, the first thing we did is look at topography. So the dark red are the super steep slopes, and Indian Meadows has a really interesting topography where you come in off of Dealman on Napoleon. There's some really steep slopes in there, and the theory from the landscape architects and the engineers is that what we're seeing there is the ancient river to Pear channel. That we do know that before it was put into the channel, the river actually flowed through here, and there was a neighborhood here, and it flowed all around throughout the homes here and went across and over. And when this industrial park was developed and when the homes here were removed, the river was channelized and the water was moved over. So that's one of the reasons we have incredible amounts of water sitting here through a majority of the summer. And we have some sort of artisanal spring up here on the top of the park here that flows down through here. And then a lot of water flows through here. So this is the old ancient riverbed here. And the same thing happens when you look at the historic aerials on the county website. You can see the river actually flowed through here. So it kind of, some of these homes are probably built on the old riverbed itself too.
Hey, Beverly, the cement block wall off of Dealman and Napoleon, is that owned by the city
Yes,
and maintained by the city?
yes.
Okay.
That's to be replaced by Great Rivers Greenway. They're expanding the trail there, and they're going to remove that wall and put in a new retaining wall. And I'm very happy about that because that retaining wall does not look like it was necessarily put in correctly.
Yeah, I was a little confused on the call earlier this evening from Greenway, so that's why I wanted to clarify that.
Okay, yeah. So we own that wall. I don't know what year it was put in. There's been quite a bit of erosion around it too. So this is much nicer. And the neighbors that live across from it, they get tired of the weeds that grow up into it. So I'm very excited that a whole new retaining wall is being put in there, and Great Rivers Greenway is actually paying for it. And then these dash lines here show you where our heaviest drainage issues are. There's definitely drainage issues here. We have some here that necessarily, but this is the absolute worst right here. Next, we went through and we did the tree assessment, and you can see there are quite a few trees in here that are assessed poor to be removed and yellow in fair condition. What's also not put on here is over in this section, we have a lot of ash trees that are going to be removed, but we don't need to worry about that because Great River Greenway is taking care of that. But the one that was a shocker to me is the pin oaks scored very poorly through around the playground here. So the red, we definitely are going to have to remove. The yellow, we may be able to treat them. We're going to take a look and see what we can do, but pin oaks do grow relatively quickly. So we can replace them, but I was very surprised to see that they were in such bad shape in there. The trees along here, I wasn't surprised because some of the trees planted in here are just not appropriate for the amount of water that they get. The pathway here serves as a dam. So the water that's flowing out of these homes gets trapped and sits in here and can't get to the river to Paris. So when Great Rivers Greenway comes through here with their new trail, they'll be addressing that. They'll be putting in better drainage under the trail, as well as putting in rain gardens and bioretention basins to help filter that water. So there's a couple homes in here that are actually very excited and chomping at the bit and want that to happen like immediately. So that's good news. And then down over here, oops, didn't mean to do that. I apologize. Let me just get rid of that. It's not clearing. Come on. Do I have to erase it?
Not to worry.
You have to hit the erase and then swipe over it.
Well, it's permanent now. Okay.
Control Z.
Why?
Yeah, it probably won't work.
I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, now it's not giving me my cursor back. Oh my goodness.
Go up to
Beverly,
the,
click the arrow. Go up and click the
Yeah,
arrow
click the
pointer.
arrow next to the 17.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. The good news is the health of the trees in here. This is an absolutely stunningly beautiful part of the park. So anybody that's walked through here, this is just gorgeous. And you know, this park really is a really, really nice park. And I'm really excited about the renovations that are going to happen here, because I think it'll first of all, it'll improve the experience for people that are using the park, but I think also it'll draw more people into the park because it is such a beautiful park. So I'm excited about that. Now, how do I get this out of here? There we go. Okay. So, oops, the wrong way. Okay. So next we, the same as the previous drawings, what is changing, what's likely to remain. And you can tell that the pavilion, the playground, the pavilions and the restrooms are staying there as part of the Prop C improvements. The vision calls for eventually considering relocating them to a part of the park, but that is a vision and that is not what we're addressing now. And we're still not sure exactly how that would work. And then the pathways definitely remaining, and it'll be enhanced by the Great Rivers Greenway. And what the Great Rivers Greenway route is doing, if those of you were on the call earlier, it's coming into the park along the sidewalk here. And then it's going to move up into this plateau area. And that kind of takes it away from this house here on the end so that you don't have the greenway going right up against the house, because our existing path is right on the property line there. So the Great Rivers Greenway is coming up around over here and coming back down. And that is, I'm very excited about that. That is a really nice improvement. It gives a better experience. It gets people up into this part of the park that's underused. And then it lessens the impact on this home right here. So that's really nice. Then this area is kind of a land of opportunity. This is a really nice area of the park, and it's much larger than these areas. So this is a nice area to enhance. And if you're increasing visitors, you want to have it be in another area, not in your super concentrated area. Oops, I apologize. What happened? Okay, so this shows you planned park improvements. This is the actual trail for Great Rivers Greenway. You can see they are at roughly schematic design phase. They do a slightly different planning timeline. You can watch tonight's presentation on the Great Rivers Greenway site, so you can actually see, if you're interested in how their process actually goes. But this is the actual, what we have so far, route of the Great Rivers Greenway. And these circles along here, these are trees and plants that they will be putting in. So you can tell we really are getting an amazing contribution to this park from Great Rivers Greenway. I'm just very excited about that. It saves us a lot of money.
Hey, Bev, do we know how many trees are going to need to take out, though?
We do, because look, I've done it again. We don't, because the yellow ones, we're still going to try and get some assessments on that. But the commitment is when we have to take out trees, we'll absolutely be replacing them.
So it's possible they may have to take out some green trees that are circled there in order to do the path, perhaps?
I don't think so. The Great Rivers Greenway is trying really you mean,
They had Beverly in their presentation tonight. It looked like there were only 2 trees really marked to take out because of root issues
yes.
in this whole park. So they're gonna do their
It's
best to
along
save
here.
them. Yeah,
Yeah,
there
the
were really 2 that they highlighted, and the rest they're gonna try to save if at all possible.
Correct. They really are tree centric, and they've rerouted the trail several times to make sure that they are saving trees. So that's really good news. The trees that they're removing along this side in here, most of them are ash trees, and they have to come out because of the liquid emerald ash borer. All right, what are we looking at here? Okay, so these are the connections. So you can see that these are pathways going to stay here and here. And then you've got the new Centennial Greenway coming in. And then they're recommending new pathways in here so we can get that connectivity, those circular pathways that we encouraged in all of the parks. And then it calls for reopening this. So I think we're going to need anybody that is interested in being on a task force to do neighborhood outreach, let me know, because it sounds like we're gonna have to be doing some of that. Now this gives you, here is the original concept plan. This is the first concept we saw from them, concept A. Actually, I shouldn't say the first, we saw all 3 at the same time. And this is the one we eliminated because we said that, that disc golf just wasn't an activity we wanted to promote in this park. And you'll notice that the core designs are similar between A and B. So by eliminating disc golf, we're not eliminating really any of the plans. But what the team liked is a combination of the theme of an art walk with the theme of a fitness circuit. And what that means is, as we come in here, this is, I'm going to move right past the disc golf, right into, this is the art walk. So both of these are somewhat similar. So what the project team liked about this is having some sort of a circular activity, having enhanced play here. And you'll notice in both of them that it calls for adding some parking. So a lot of people that live in Indian Meadows drive to visit the park. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Why? I don't know. I'm going to try not to touch the screen and see if I can avoid writing on the drawing. I'm trying to zoom in here so that you can see here, these are parking stalls that would head on into the park. Because people do drive to visit the park from Indian Meadows and from other parts of the city, we wanted to create some off-street parking because what we want to prevent is people parking in front of homes along here and blocking driveways and congesting the street. So I think that is a reasonable accommodation. And I think it would benefit all the park users. You can see as you're looking at these drawings, this is a bioretention basin. So these are added in here to start taking care of that surface water so that these fields can drain, and then this becomes a more usable space. Then a lot of times of the year, kids can't come out and play here. People can't sit on blankets and read or whatever out here because it is so wet. And when we do movies in the park, we have to do them right at the end of the summer. Otherwise, we can't even mow it. So I think that's a nice improvement. I'm looking forward to that. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns about this session?
So Beverly, do you have any concerns about the maintenance that's got to be required on the Greenway?
No, I don't, because majority of the Greenway, particularly in this section, is in our parks, and we're gonna have to be maintaining them anyway. So no, I don't. And it's such an added bonus for our residents that I think it's, they're necessary expenses and we just have to do it. But But the same tenants, the core tenants we have in our park master plan are being used for the Centennial Greenway. So what that means is it'll be minimal mowing, and they're using more native plants so that the trees that they plant and the plants they plant have a better survival rate. They're not annuals that we have to go out and replace every year. So they, as much of a low maintenance landscape that you can have, you know, we're pretty much there.
So the one other issue that I thought as they were describing what they were doing is back to that big wall at the entrance. So if they do something else there, Olivet then has the long-term maintenance of that. Is that correct?
They do, but I am very confident. Number one, when we did that wall, we did it in-house with a contractor.
Okay.
Great Rivers Greenway has a giant engineering firm, actually 3 engineering firms coordinating on this. They use excellent design standards. They build at a higher design, at a higher, more costly rate than we do. When I say that, I mean more quality construction. So I think it'll be an improvement, and I think it'll lessen our long-term maintenance and liability with that wall.
Yeah, and I think we're also moving away from railroad ties and so forth, and going
Yeah.
into masonry.
And yeah, and that wall is what I call a tombstone wall because it's the interlocking.
Mhm.
I can't remember the technical term for them, but they're interlocking.
Not easy to maintain.
Not easy to maintain, and it's a north-facing slope, so the plants didn't do very well. And you all know our staffing issues, so it just didn't. I don't think it was set up for success.
Well, and to be honest, I walked down there this afternoon
Yeah,
before the meeting just to walk. I didn't walk the entire length of the park, but I walked a good portion of it.
yeah,
And yeah, there's maintenance issues abounding. So I was hoping that's what you would say, that they were going
Yeah.
to vastly improve that from a cost
yeah.
perspective.
It really will improve it. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to stop mowing this hillside. For those of you that are familiar with the park, there's a very steep hillside here, and it has.
There is.
I thought were they almost look like cow trails on it, and it's actually grooves from the mower over time. So what we're going to be doing is replacing that. So it's not grass that has to be mowed, but it's going to be a more low growing annual, and get the mowers out of there. So it's
A
going to,
ground cover of some sort.
yeah, we're going to put a low growing ground cover in there. So it'll make it more pleasing, but it'll also be safer, and we don't have to worry about a contract mower rolling down the hill. I'm surprised that there hasn't been an injury there. And it also brings activity up into this section of the park, which I think is really nice. My understanding is there used to be a playground here a long time ago, and that there used to be a playground here, and that the only thing kind of remaining is the old fire engine. And I want to ask you about the fire engine. So
There was never a playground at the fire engine. It
no,
was-
but there were swings there, but there were swings behind it.
Yes, there were. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all. That was the only thing. Okay.
So the fire engine, is that historic and folkloric? Is there great love for that? Is that something we should be preserving?
I would say that it's become that only because it is different, and it is a focal point for that center, for that part of the park. It's not a structure that I think, in fact, it's kind of interesting that we're talking about an art walk, and we're talking about that very area maybe for a signature art piece. I think there would be no problem personally with removing it if it's replaced with something similar. Because right now it kind of serves as an art piece. The little kids get on it and they turn the wheel and pretend on it for a little bit, but it's not a piece that a lot of kids engage.
Right.
So,
Right.
so
Yeah, it's borderline unsafe too.
I think it's one of those things where it might be neat to preserve part of it or incorporate it in, or it's part of the history and not to lose that. But I think it's like, barbecue pits and other kinds of things. I think time has passed, perhaps.
Okay.
And I'm saying that because my daughters all grew up on it, and they all have pictures of it, on it, with the big steering wheel and their firemen's hats on and stuff. So, yeah, I say that even having that history.
Okay.
I did have a question, if I could, about the parking in that area. How many spots? I can't find out how many they're kind of wanting there.
Well, the best we can kind of do, because this is a conceptual drawing, the best
Sure.
thing we can do is just count what we see on the screen, but that's not necessarily, because it is still conceptual. This is not a detailed drawing. It's not a schematic, but you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this is disabled. So 5 regular stalls and 1 disabled stall. So we're not talking about a tremendous number of parking
And-
spots.
And
And
that's why
what's-
I can't, Sue, I'm sorry, I want to follow up on this a little
Go
bit
for
more,
it.
okay? Since this was a big source of 2006 contention with neighbors and lots of things, so I kind of want to work through it.
But Ed, I just had a quick question. What street is that?
That's Huron and Grandview. It's where Grandview
Grandview.
makes the
That's
turn
all I
into
wanted.
Huron.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this drawing makes it look like it's right there on the edge of the street. Is there any way that it could probably go into the park a little bit so that there's like a green buffer, so it's not, the parking lot is right up against the street? That would be one thing. The other thing is that that road and the way it's used, because of the turn, I would worry about cars trying to back out onto it. It is a blind spot. I walk it almost every day. I drive it. I know that cars like to fly around there. It seems that if a parking lot were more into the park and there was an opportunity for a car to come out, front first, that's a big safety consideration. Also, I guess the question is I guess in the vision is that we're going to have a pavilion maybe more in that area. I don't see where the access to the cars matters if we don't. Like if it's just if a sculpture or a climbing thing that people are going to interact with, I'm not sure it's a driving destination. It should be a walking or a bicycling destination. Because then we have at the other end of the park a pavilion and all that doesn't have parking. That, it just seems a little backwards, unless we're thinking that this is for the future, that we are going to move that pavilion and some of that parking, especially with disabled park users, that would benefit from them. But I guess really my bigger point is getting the parking lot into the park in a way that cars can turn around and come out front first, and not to have it so that they're backing out onto that hairpin turn.
Right. And this is not a picnic pavilion. This is a shade rest area.
Right.
Maybe have a picnic there, but it's not to the same scale as over here. And right now in this conceptual design, we are not showing relocating this at this time. I think that's something to explore further down the road. We're certainly not doing it during this phase. And you're right about the parking, and the issue with the current pavilion we have in Indian Meadows, we don't do reservations at it. It's first come, first serve. So it does not have the same frequency of use as the other pavilions, and it certainly has a much lower impact on the neighbors. So that I don't see that changing with our practice, because this is a neighborhood park. It's not a community park, and it's certainly not a regional park. So,
well, and I think, in that area you're talking about, Bev, there is enough land and there's enough area to have 5 spaces. And I see Sue's comment there about 45-degree angle, which
Yeah.
makes sense too. I wonder, is it too late because we're in concept to take a look at that?
no, it's not. That's what concept's for. And so
Okay.
I've recorded your comments. So
Okay.
I'm going to put them up so you can see, and just make sure that I'm capturing them. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It's
Ed, would you see that as opposed to maybe 3 parallel parking where it's in? Would that get around some of that issue of backing out?
I think that's harder to do on a curve.
Right.
The parallel parking, and right now it creates a choke point right outside, right there on Huron and with the neighbors.
Yeah.
When we have any kind of sizable event. So that cul-de-sac and that area in there, what we're talking about with the Grandview Huron parking lot area can easily be done on that side. I'm saying in addition to, I'm not saying in lieu
Right.
of, I'm just thinking that that
Mm.
area needs it. And I think those neighbors might appreciate, a little bit of relief. But I'm really thinking more about as a place for more like, disabled parking and also for drop off of equipment. And, that's how the 5 parking spots would probably serve as.
Yeah.
For the most
Yeah,
part.
and I think that, to your point, I think a lot of people will walk to the park. However, we do know people drive to the park now, either they've got small children, because there aren't sidewalks in Indian Meadows. So there are people that just don't feel comfortable with the walking.
Well,
So,
the young parents, right? They do need a place to go. The other thing, well, before the restroom, the thought was they couldn't walk there because they couldn't walk back to their house for the restroom. So
Right.
that has helped, but certainly having a couple spots for the playground and pavilion area, I think if we're not going to move this thing anytime soon, which I will tell you is kind of the first I've heard of it, because I thought in our master plan, that was kind of the goal. And I know it was a vision item, which means it may or may not happen, but I don't know if other residents, see it that way. I think
Yeah.
there might be some expectation that it's going to happen with this go around. So
what
we might
this
need to
what
tell
this
them
is
that.
Showing is that the existing pavilion remains, but it's adding a shelter at the east. So that's that shelter we're seeing in there. It's just not going to be the same size as the other pavilion. But there will be new features that will draw people over to this side of the park. So I think it will reduce the amount of activity on the western end of the park, because this, people go where it's new. This is where the splash pad's going to be. So I think this is really going to be the more heavily used area of the park. So I probably misspoke when I said not moving it, because it's going to stay over there, but there's another one being built here. It's just not the same size. But again, these are conceptual. So if your recommendation is to make this the larger pavilion now, then I will write that down.
Yeah. And one question I have to Sue's point, back in 45-degree parking, we've had that discussion at another over at Herbside, and have moved away from it. How do folks feel about back in 45-degree parking? I think the consensus of the group was that becomes a little bit of a problem, but I don't know. How do people feel about that?
So I think it depends on how busy the road is that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Is part of the issue. But if you look at the parks in the city of St. Louis, almost all of them, or a good percentage of them, use a lot of that. Because you're going the same direction and you're back in and you're pulling out instead of backing out into the street.
Yeah.
And from a safety standpoint, it's definitely safer.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you parallel park, you have people getting out of their vehicle into the traffic,
Mhm.
which is never a good thing.
Yeah.
Especially if you have people that have driven to the park because they're not as mobile.
Right.
I mean, you're talking people that are really mobile are walking.
Yeah.
And so the people that are driving are doing it because of mobility issues. So you want to
Okay.
do whatever you can to make it safe, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just
The
my
other-
thought.
The other thought is second that also for small children.
Yeah.
With kids in these parks and having visibility and when backing and pulling in and pulling out.
Okay. So this takes us to concept C with the fitness circuits. So the project team's recommendation is to combine the art with the fitness and have a little bit of both. And this one shows fitness circuits along the trail here. And this was not something that was really discussed during our initial Parks Master Plan. And the reason the architects are suggesting this is 2 reasons. One, they've spent a lot of time in this park and they've seen a lot of people out there exercising and using the benches and the picnic tables as step ups and for crunches. And so there definitely are people that are doing their own fitness routine in this park. So that gives them more options. The other thing that they shared with us is that there's been a 400% increase in purchasing of outdoor exercise equipment in parks since the pandemic, because so many people are now accustomed to working out outside. So the landscape architects actually went to we're on a training session just last week and learned that statistic, which really was amazing. That's an incredible increase in the last couple of months. So we thought that it is nice. It ties in nice with the Greenway. The other thing that they suggested is that as with having a couple of art pieces, either from similar to the Trova, where we have it on loan for a long-term loan from Lohmeyer Sculpture Park, or we have smaller pieces that are in a walking along, but that also there could be a climbing structure that is an architectural or artistic element. So there could actually be part of the playground or a standalone item could be a sculptural climbing toy, which might be really exciting, because we all know the Trova sculpture at Stacy Park is used as a playground all the time, even though it isn't necessarily designed for that. So this, again, same thing, it adds a shelter at the east. And I guess, Ed, the big thing too is for us to find out what is the capacity, what's the size of that. That would be really helpful for us to kind of help us understand exactly what's going on.
We also had that presentation a while back on different fitness equipment and the Ninja Warrior craze, and trying to maybe think about some of those kind of elements. I would advocate, and I'm willing to try to do some research, that I know there's got to be a sculptor or an artist out there that can do, that doesn't have to be separate things. It can be like that fitness, that step up can be the art, but also, it'd be an interactive, like you were saying, but it could all be, or it could be themed. It has an opportunity to be something that's really, really unique, that there's no other place around like it. If we wanted to maybe try to find or do a little time to find that person or organization that does that kind of thing, perhaps. Right? We can still just dream right now, right? That's okay?
Yeah, well, and I also think from the budget perspective that would be a vision item, or looking for a grant of some sort.
Yeah, it definitely, that might be a grant that could be, if you identified a sculptor that was interested in doing that, that could be a grant that came out of the Regional Arts Commission that would fund the sculptor to create it. That might be a really exciting project. I need to write this correctly. Fitness equipment could possibly be the art.
Okay, so I get registered, right? Jason Ware's in the system. You see me in the system. So then they should be able to go in the system and click the order to create the order.
Are you guys hearing that, or is that just?
Yeah, I think yeah.
No, we can hear it.
Who's talking?
I can't figure it out.
I think it's Keisha.
Keisha?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, we're all good.
Sorry, it was me.
Okay, no problem. You want to move on to Irvside?
I just want to make sure I have this correct. So the fitness equipment could, I'm just going to say, not going to say possibly, could be the art or an art piece. And I'm going to just throw you under the bus, Ed. Ed has offered to research potential artists. How's that? Okay. Thank you, Ed. Okay. All right. Anything else on Indian Meadows before we move on to Irvside? Just from a ballpark with everyone, is everyone comfortable with this direction that we're going with this park?
I am. I just think I want to have more clarity on the parking issue. I think.
Okay.
Oh, and I forgot to write, we want the pavilion capacity. Let me add that in here. What will the pavilion capacity be on East End? And I apologize for my typing skills.
That's what spell check is for.
Okay. Will West End Pavilion ever relocate or be eliminated?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to close this. No, we're not changing those goals. We're not changing those things. I think what was happening is I think maybe I was writing in the PDF. It's probably what was going on there. Okay, Irvside. Here we go. Okay. Let's get that back out of the way. Okay. So Irvside, the team, you can probably tell from the email, the team could not, there was no definitive selection of the designs. We talked about all of them, and we have a lot of questions for the Parks and Rec Commission. So here's the concept plan from 2018. Here's the topography. So over here in the northwest corner is where the dog park is, in this super steep area. This is the water issue. We have huge amounts of runoff that come out of the Logos School parking lot, they come all along the edge of the parking lot here, and they flow like a river. And that's not I'm not exaggerating. There is an incredible amount of water that flows through this park. And then there's a lot of water that flows off this hillside, because back over here, there's a creek channel here that used to kind of meander through here. So all of this is a hillside, it's a decline, and it's all shedding down over here into this little stream. So then we have these nice big flat areas in the park, but we also have more water issues here and more water issues here. Then we also have a lot of trees in poor condition and a lot of trees to be removed. And those of you that went to some of the public meetings for the park master plan, we learned that this is called the scary park, because people don't like the excessive amount of trees in here. We only heard that from one or two people, but it really stuck in my brain. And then we have the restroom over here. And I put in the notes to you that the restroom needs attention. It's not part of Prop C, but we have a lot of problems with this restroom. Its construction and its lack of visibility to the men's room. And that is where we have people that defecate when the restroom's closed, right in front of the doors there. And anything we can do to mitigate that over the long term. So the staff's investigating things we can do, and that'll be a separate capital project, but we've got to do something with that restroom. It's not, I just can't believe that happens there. It's just terrible. These are the existing assets and infrastructure. The original master plan called for not moving the pavilion and not moving the restroom and not moving the dog park. And that was all part of our financial responsibility, because anytime you move a structure like that, it's very expensive. So we're talking about, these are likely to remain. The playground's going to remain in the same spot. And then the dog park, you can tell it's a lighter green, because we have some options that potentially would relocate that. Here's program opportunity areas. Again, the nice flat areas, great places to have activities. And then this back area is the area that needs to have less impact in there and be more of a, helping mitigate the storm water runoff in there. And then circulation, having circular paths as we've promised. Again, here's the master plan. And now here are the concepts. So there's 4 concepts. I'm going to take you through each one just high level. Concept A keeps the dog park where it is. It has the nature play and the splash pad up on the southwest corner. The play remains here. We have walking paths through here that are wood chips. These are Ed Kastner paths, although he will not have to build them necessarily. We have bioretention in here. And in the master plan, you see there are 2 parking lots that were called for in the original master plan to provide parking for the park during the week, because on the weekends, Logos School parking lot is used for people that use the pavilion. That's subpar because of access. Currently there are no pathways that exist over here, so that's really a struggle for people schlepping in picnic coolers and things. So there is a lot of good parking along the front of Old Bonham, but the master plan, we talked about having 2 separate parking lots here. Now, the landscape architect we have now really wants to move away from that, because they say anytime, and they're right, anytime you have a curb cut into the sidewalk, you are increasing activity between pedestrians, bicyclists, and cars. So they're really trying to reduce that and have only 1 parking lot instead of 2. And then the bigger question is, do we really need a parking lot? So that's in a nutshell. Well, I guess you got the picnic grove here, play area here, the patio off the side of the pavilion here. So that is concept A. Concept B puts the parking lot off of Bon Price Terrace. It moves the dog park to the front of the park. It changes the nature play area and puts it in the back of the park. The picnic grove stays right there between the pavilion and the restroom. And then it adds a patio, kind of like a little dog leg in the middle of the field here. And then the nature play continues over here with the walking paths. This parking lot option was eliminated by the project team because the city manager pointed out that Bon Price Terrace is too narrow for that, for the cars going in and out. And it would cause backups and hardships for this neighborhood here. If there was a large picnic leaving and they were all pulling out, it would create backups in here. So this is a no-fly zone. It's also too close to the corner here. So we are eliminating this from the consideration. But the other things are still open for consideration. Then concept C, the parking lot is just 1 way in, 1 way out. That's 1 curb cut. It really defines these bioretention basins right where they're most effective. Nature play and the playground are all consolidated together with the splash pad. And this has the dog park in the front of the park. And then it also has that patio with a different configuration coming in off the street. And one of the things for the commission to think about is, one of the questions that was asked is, this pathway into the pavilion is the ancient route. It's the old driveway and the way in for the old cemetery. So we want to make sure that that isn't something that the community really loves if it were to be truncated or even disappear. So that's definitely something we want the commission to weigh in on. And then the final concept D is kind of much similar to C, just different shaping. So you have the water back over here, nature play, you have these pathways around, more nature play, more play, dog park. The big difference is the pavilion is relocated and the dog park. So this is exciting to me because I do think that it's a challenge for park visitors to get from their cars to the pavilion. So moving it closer to Old Bonham is wonderful. The one thing that was eliminated here was this is the 45-degree back-in parking. And that was, the project team just felt that that was not an appropriate usage on Old Bonham because it is such a very busy street. And it's a 2-way street. It's not a divided street. So, so those are the 4 concepts. So now I really want to hear from everyone, and I want to remind you of the project team is really looking for direction from the Parks Commission on parking. Is it needed here? Is it not needed here? And what about relocating the dog park? And what about relocating the pavilion? So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, can I talk about the parking right off the bat?
Sure.
So being from the north area that has no park. I know that people in my neighborhood, when there's an event, like a movie or an evening event, they absolutely want to be able to park near the park because they don't want to walk home in the dark across Olive Street Road.
Mhm.
That's a big issue. So whether that means we can park at Logo School, that works. If it's a weekend thing, right? Maybe use the synagogue right there for parking. That's a possibility. But I really like that parking in concept C.
Okay, so number one, so parking is absolutely needed, and I agree. The pavilion, can't talk. The pavilion capacity we have in here is 100 people. So we definitely know that Logo School is used. We have an agreement with Logo School. It's a handshake agreement, but we check in with them periodically. They're totally fine with it. But it does have an issue if there were events during the week. So I did some looking back through the records. We have very few reservations during the week at Irvside. I could find one last year for a book club on an evening, and they did use the parking lot because the school was out for the day. And then the only one where I really found a conflict was about 3 years ago. A school teacher retired, and there was a retirement party for the school teacher during the day, and parking was an issue for them because they had to park along the road on both sides of the road because Logos has normally has quite a few cars in its parking lot. So
that would be my point. That'd be my question, is that I'd like to see a concept where maybe they have a small 5 to 10 car parking lot, and then we're still keeping up with our agreement with Logos for, the use for weekends. I'm not necessarily anxious to jump in and take away green space and pave over it. I understand, to Sue's point, there needs to be something though, because people coming from all over need to have a place, but I don't have a concept of how many spaces we're talking about in these plans. Are we talking 20, 30, 50, or are we, I have no idea scale wise, but I would like to see something where it's just like 5 to 10, no more than that, to help with those kinds of things. And then, Logos is what we do for the weekends, for the T-ball games and other things that happen in this park.
Yeah. And
That's
as I've walked that park, it looks like there's between 5 and maybe 8 parallel spots along Old Bottom already. But I don't know
Yes.
whether that's
we
sufficient.
have there's 2 disabled spots, and then I don't have a clear count of how many spots there are, but we could find out.
I think it's 8, Beverly.
Is that on both sides of the street or just?
That's on the side,
On the north side.
yeah, where the park is. There really aren't any spots on the other side. It's just street. It's regular street parking. Which
And-
means residents use it, et cetera. So
Yeah.
And
it depends on the
it's
time of
also-
day.
Yeah,
right?
and it's also striped for a bike lane, so it's a little wider than a normal car.
Yeah, it's
But-
definitely wider.
And Beverly, to your access point, I assume that regardless of which concept we use, they're going to improve the access from Logos parking lot into the park.
Yes, absolutely. You'll notice each one of these designs has a little
Pathway, right?
on all of those. You can
Yeah.
see that.
That will make a huge difference too,
Right.
that alone. But
Yeah.
I like concept C because it's drive in, drive out. And I think you're going to get the most use of that space doing it that way.
And
I
one of the
agree with
things-
Sue. Yeah, I like concept C a lot, mainly for how it brings the dog park forward. I know the other ones do, but
Right.
there seems to be a lot more of the nature and a lot more green space somehow with
Mhm.
that configuration that I like. And if the parking lot could be smaller, I would even advocate for that. But the in and out there, I agree.
Well, and the cool thing about that is the green spaces all together. And it doesn't seem like the parking lot's really encroaching on that nature area. Right? There's a dividing line, if you would. So that once you're across into the back section, you don't really have contact to the parking lot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And-
So,
and-
what do you think if concept C is the one you're leaning towards, how do you feel about the pavilion itself location?
I agree with you that anything you can do, because again, if you move the pavilion more forward towards Old Bonham,
Mhm,
again, you're preserving the nature space and you're not encroaching on it
mhm,
as much. And you have better access to bring stuff in and out of the park.
mhm.
My
Okay,
only concern, I'm sorry, Bev, my only concern on this one is whether people will use that back quarter or back half of the park. If we pull the dog park, the play, the pavilion, everything towards the street, which is more accessible, it's lighter, there's fewer trees. I do question, I don't feel like that's like a creepy area, but it is a darker area and less kind of used area. And so I worry that by pulling all the amenities forward, that back quarter of the park may not be as used as much.
Well,
right.
it depends what people want. I mean, I've been walking way more since COVID. And anything I can do to get away from the road and get away from the cars and get more in tune with nature, the better.
Yeah, I
So-
agree with that. I guess it would just be.
And so I think Ed's proven that concept with the trails in Stacy, right?
Yeah,
That,
those trails are incredibly heavily used.
yeah, that people want to be away from.
Okay, so
I
Sue,
think
when
it
other
would
stuff.
just be
These
then the
pathways-
balance of light and trees. If it's
Yeah.
too dense, if it's too dark, then
I
I
hear
think
ya.
that could discourage use.
Yeah, we did hear that Great Rivers Greenway, you know, as you can imagine, they do an incredible amount of public engagement over trails. I mean, that's their mission. And they do hear from people that, particularly people that live in suburban St. Louis, aren't always as comfortable walking on trails that have heavy tree canopies. Now we're noticing now that the trails in Stacy, people are using it and we don't see that hesitancy, but it could also be because people feel so comfortable in Stacy Park because they've walked there for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And can I tell you, I think it's partly a generational thing too. Because I've had a couple of older residents say to me, man, you guys put those new trails in. Is anyone using them? I think they're useless. And I'm like, oh, go tell all the people with young kids
Oh
that.
my gosh. Well, you know what's funny is
Right.
the first people that started using the Stacy Trail before it was open were these older guys, like octogenarians. They were just tearing up in there. And I was just, and I came across this guy and he was just so excited. I thought he was going to jump out of his skin. So it's funny.
So it is funny, right? Because I said, oh, they're getting a huge amount of use because
Yeah.
they were shocked. And I'm like, yeah.
Ed probably knows
depends what
everybody
you
uses
want.
the trail though, right, Ed?
Many of them I've met several times, yes.
Yeah, and I think at Herbside, as with the other parks, as we begin to remove invasives, it opens up a lot as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it opens up a lot, and I think we're definitely going to be taking down a lot of trees at Herbside just because they are so crowded, they aren't healthy. So it'll open it up quite a bit. I believe these yellow trees on here are some of the ones that could be slated for removal. I think they took the red ones out and left the orange ones in. I think the yellow ones in. I believe.
Yeah.
Part of me is thinking if we have a smaller parking lot or no parking lot, that would free up money to potentially move that pavilion. One of the things we've asked both at Stacy and here is to assess the structural condition of the pavilion, because if it's in really good shape, well, then we should probably leave it for now, but have it be a vision to move later. But if it's in really poor shape, then it would be definitely one we'd want to consider moving. Did I?
Yep.
say all the
Bev,
his-
we just replaced the roof on it recently?
No, we never
We
did.
did not.
No, we did a partial replacement on the restroom, and the restroom needs a little bit more work on it.
Yeah,
So do you have
the
a
inter-
sense of the status of that pavilion? Could you rate it on a scale of 1 to
I
10 where
can't.
you think it is?
I need an engineer to look at it. I can tell you, but I can, because I found a historic photo of what it looked like when it was built, and it was amazing. So when it was built, it had buttresses that came off the side.
Yeah.
And at some point, either they rotted or people didn't like them, so they just cut them straight off at the roof line and had to put in new supports. So it definitely has been retrofitted. I will email you that
I
photo.
think they rotted.
Yeah, it was a routing issue.
Oh, you guys remember it? You remember?
Yeah, yeah, I remember when
It
that
was
park opened.
beautiful. That was an amazing, when it was first built, that
And
thing,
it was well built. It was really well built, but I think they had a rotting issue because of the water from the tree line.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's definitely what happened over on the restroom. Bad spots on the restroom because of it. We actually had some trees we took down over there because they were in poor health and they were dripping onto the roof. So,
Maxine and I don't want to date ourselves, but we were kids playing on the playground.
okay, any other thoughts on this? Are you ready?
Bev, yeah, Bev, I'm sorry. So the dog park moving to the front, I'm assuming it's going to be fenced.
Yes, yeah, this dog park would be fenced, yes.
Okay, so then I would throw out there, obviously, that we need to, obviously we will, but really think about what that fencing looks like, and how it can mesh with the environment. Obviously, none of us want a chain link fence or anything like that, but it has to be something ornamental, and if we need more money, because if we're bringing it to the front, we're really going to have to be aware of that, I think.
I think also, if I understand this right, the dog park's right off the water play area. Is that right?
In C, it looks that way. Yeah, the
Yeah.
splash pad.
Yeah.
Which, maybe we're okay with it, but on hot days, I could see dogs running through there as well, and then there being kids. It'd be just something to be aware of.
Oh, yeah. My dog would be in that water area in a hot second. Yeah.
Now, we've had a lot of discussions about adjacency issues and how to deal with those kinds of things.
Yeah, and to your point, I totally agree. Fencing is the most expensive part of a dog park. It is very expensive to put in fencing. We have issues with the fencing over here where it is now because of the slope, and there are dogs that are able to climb over the top because it's such a slope. So, I mean, this is a poor spot for it. So it could be that if this is the one you like, maybe the dog park gets closer to the parking lot rather than right here. But yeah, I don't know. That fence is a struggle because that will be, I agree it needs to be ornamental, but that cost will be a big factor and it may end up just staying right here. But we've had a lot of requests from people to move it to the front over the years. So
I think that'd be a mistake if we went with concept A personally, because I think that would really limit the nature area and all that. And I guess too, the other thing is that we're talking about a dog park at Warson. I know it'd be nice to have two. Well, technically we have a free rein dog park in Stacy. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have it, but I'm also wondering if it's the most important component of this park. Is that the defining feature of this park? I mean, how needed is it compared to trails and the water feature, the relocated pavilion? I mean, I'll bow to the residents in that area, but I'm kind of leaning towards, I wonder how much use that is if we have a nice one at Warson near the community center in the future.
Did that capture it?
Hey, Beverly, do we have a number on how many people have licenses for the dog park now?
I can get that for you. Absolutely.
Because I don't really have a sense how that would go over.
The one thing we'd have to do is it would have to be a phase, if it were the decision were to remove it from here and substitute it with the one at Warson. The Warson one is a vision. It's not funded through Prop C. However, the long-term plan was to re-engage the county with a joint project, because originally the county was had a grant from Purina to build a dog park, to build the fencing for a dog park. And with the kind of the disarray in the county, it lost its, you guys all know the history. I don't have to tell you the history. So anyway, I'm assuming they gave the money back to Purina, but I'm not entirely sure that happened. I do know the people that were running the shelter were unaware of it when I talked to them about it. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to Villa? Okay. It just dawned on me, I better save this before we go any further. Okay, there we go. Okay, all right, let's close this. And let's open, oh my gosh. Let's open Villa. Okay, Villa Park. All right, now where are my notes? Let's move the notes back over. Whoa. Okay, Villa. And then Villa Park. Okay, so for Villa Park, same thing. We've got the outline of the park. This needs to be corrected. I can see if I can actually draw on here. This area the city does own. We own this parcel. So they're going to correct that. Okay, here is 2018 master plan. Here's the topography. It's again got this really nice flat areas. Then it has this, starts doing this slope into the back, and then it gets pretty steep over on these edges. Existing trees. This was another shocker to me. I didn't realize we had this many trees in fair condition. That was another shocker to me. So, and these guys up here are green, but they're Bradford pears, and they are slated for removal. But you notice there's a little tiny green spot here, and these little tiny green spots, these are new trees. So I really am happy that they put the new trees on here. Okay, existing assets and infrastructure. This is the playground area, parking lot, walking trails, pavilion, restroom, and this is the old swing set. And then there's a glider over here. Okay, program opportunity areas. Proposed park circulation. So really completing the loops that are already there. We almost have a figure 8, and so the circulation would complete that. So, oops. So here is the master plan. And then we move into the concept A. Concept A we call the tank dress because it looks a little bit like a tank dress. This concentrates all of the activity right in the center of the park. That's the main driver here. The parking lot is expanded, and this entrance back over here is more defined, and then this entrance is also defined.
So Beverly, does that have double the parking spots basically?
Basically, yes.
That
Basically,
we have today.
yeah. What we're trying to do is again prevent the parking in the neighborhood if we can, because right now the capacity at Villa is 50 people in this pavilion. It's our smallest one that we rent. And the parking lot does fill. We don't tend to get a lot of complaints from people parking here, which always surprises me. I always think we're going to get complaints, and we don't. But we do know with adding the renovation that it's going to increase participation here. This park is a neighborhood park, so it's a smaller park. It's a less active park, but it is right off of Price and it's very close to Irvside. So when people are unable to rent at Stacy or Irvside, they come here. And then we have some people that they just rent every year the exact same weekend, and people love this park. It's a beautiful park. This is concept B. This was, the theory was to string out the amenities so that they aren't hyper crowded around the center of the park. We're calling this the Edwardian dress because it's got a little bustle there. But it did maintain that green space here, and it did not really, if we look over here, added a little bit of a narrow walk to the east, but it didn't really add anything to the parking. And then this one was the Pearls. This one, staff really felt that having the playground and the spray pad right up against the parking lot was not optimal. So we asked just to eliminate this design. The other thing is everybody really loved the organic feel of these circles. However, you would not see them when you're in the park. You really wouldn't be aware of them. But the other ones, you're still getting that circulation. You just wouldn't have this hard circle. So here are the three concepts. So what the team was talking about is one of the questions that we asked is, could something move back over here to separate so you don't have a hyper focus? We talked about, could you potentially put the water feature up here? And with the shade back here, that might not be optimal. There is concern that if the water feature is too close to these playgrounds, then the playgrounds get all wet, and then the kids that aren't in the splash pad get wet, and then they're not happy about it. The other thing we're concerned about is if a family has rented the pavilion for a birthday party, do you really want all of this activity right here on top of your birthday party that's unrelated to you? Or would people not use this area because there's a big birthday party in there? So one of the things that the team gave feedback is, could you do a combo of these? Do a little bit where it stretches out, but it still keeps that proximity. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of it.
So you know what I thought when I saw this? You're gonna want to throw something at me. Look at C. Could you not shift that stuff either the east side of the park or at least around that circle? You can't see me pointing, but
You mean,
in other words,
you can draw on there.
can I draw?
Yeah, just hit annotate.
I do this all day. I
Success.
don't really want to even do this now, but what I was thinking was shift this. And here's my logic,
Sure.
right? I'm in that park all the time. And between 11 and 2, it gets a lot of activity from landscapers and other people that go over there to have their lunch.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really nice to have a shaded area that you could get out of your car and enjoy lunch, maybe walk down to this area that has a little more shade or whatever without
So you're
having
talking about, so you mean over here, this would be a picnic area?
picnic area
here?
or, maybe move this splash pad like up here and then a picnic area and a playground on that right side somehow.
Okay, so Sue, you're,
I'm not a designer.
okay.
Do you follow me or did I lose you?
What about the impact on the houses that are right up against that eastern border?
Okay, so I'm gonna say, so you, possible, is it possible to
Well,
move
I don't,
amenities over to the I'm gonna say some amenities over to the eastern side, and that's to provide shade.
Yeah. A more shaded area off the parking lot.
But how is that different than concept B, where you have that over on the other side? Could some of that be more of a picnic area in combo with the playground area?
Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing here. I apologize.
Yeah, if you can move your thing, that'd be good. All right.
Yeah. Okay,
Because
so,
what you're describing, Sue, sounds like exactly what I see in concept B, except it's on the other side.
Exactly.
Is concept B not?
so
Adequate?
just to be clear, you guys, this is a playground, a splash pad, and a playground. So,
Right, but if one of it could become more of a picnic area.
yes, so there, I believe that this is the picnic area here. So having this be over here.
Possibly. But what I'm thinking is if you walk in that park, right, there's a lot of traffic of people and stuff along that walkway into the park. They come out of the neighborhood and they walk down this side. And I'm just thinking this side has less stuff going on, right? People come into the park this way. It's like the main thoroughfare. I don't know that you want this stuff right on that thoroughfare. That's just what I was thinking.
Well, so what, let me see if I can go back to where we are now. So, what? Where's the, oh, shoot. Sorry, you guys. Okay. All right. So this doesn't exist right now. This is pure grass.
Right.
The reason this is the main thoroughfare is it's the only way into the park from the southern end.
Right.
By having this open to having a path here and having it loop, it's going to draw some of these people, because what's happened now is people walk this way and they enter the park here.
Yeah.
So you're going to have two options now. So it will lessen the amount of walking here. However, if the amenities stay there, if the amenities are strung along it, then that will keep that main traffic over there, and then this will be lighter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just trying to even.
Yeah,
maybe
no,
disperse
but
it a
I
little
wrote
bit.
it down. I wrote it down.
Okay. And to Jim's point, now he's going to make me go over there tomorrow and look at how close it is to the yards. But
Yeah,
these
yeah.
are backyards, and I don't think it's encroaching nearly as much as it does on this side.
So this side over here, the homes are further away from the park, and most homes along here do not have a fence, but there is a lot of greenery that separates them. This line, everybody has a fence except for the
Exactly.
right here, and the homes are much closer to the park. We hear from these neighbors on this side much more than we ever hear from these neighbors on this side. So when we do get this park, the neighbors over here, one of the biggest complaints we have is their fences have a lot of park grass and weeds grow up along the side of the fences, and we can't get mowers back in here. So it has to be hand cleared. Heather, our former horticulturalist, used to brush hog it in there, but it damaged a lot of the trees and the perennials in there. So our new horticulturalist is not doing that. He's doing a lot of hand cutting and pruning in here. So I'm very excited about the new plantings in here, because I think that will help us be better neighbors along this fence line. It'll clean it up and make it easier for us to maintain.
I think another use of the park that I've seen a lot of and experienced is the use of the big field.
Yes.
And this is the overflow where they go for the soccer practices and stuff. So for that reason, and I mean, I don't live over there, and I don't get over there as much as I used to when my kids were younger, but I like concept A because I think it retains some of that field that's close to the parking lot. And I think that separation is kind of nice, but I like the green space on the parking lot of concept B and C. I think that's a needed thing. I would hate not to have that in any of the concepts.
Yeah, that was absolutely our direction of project team, was to maintain that green buffer And if it means moving it further into the park, so be it, because we already know we have to take these trees down because they are Bradford pears. So the plan is to replace those with more trees. And did all of you understand my note? We don't want these depicted on future designs. They're on here only for us to be able to gauge the sizes. The reason that we don't want them on the designs is this is not a park where we would put games. We would never put league games here. It is a park where, as Ed mentioned, teams could have practices, particularly younger kids, but we would not put anybody over the age of 8 in here for baseball or soccer or anything. This is purely for people that need a place to just practice. It's just not amenable. But this field gets a lot of use. A lot of kids use it. They use it at night. I see them in there with glow in the dark frisbees a lot. It's a very popular park.
Yeah, and the other thing too, in terms of concept A that I see, because I live just north of the park, is that it kind of puts the amenities between the entrance on the south and people coming on the north, and particularly as we get the Tess Avenue entrance more, there will be a whole nother set of folks that have better access to the park.
Okay, I'm going to close this now. And I'm going to go down into here. Let's see, Sue, can you just delete your,
Yeah, hold on.
okay. Yeah, no worries. So these are the notes I sent you.
You don't like my drawing?
No, I love your
Grass
drawing.
all
I'm
over the
very
place?
impressed you were able to do a curve. That's
Well,
always
I do
my,
this all day, every day,
okay,
but I can't find my
Um,
stupid annotation thing. Hang on a minute.
that's okay. So I'm going to move back out my notes. I want to make sure that I've captured everything that that you've mentioned. I notice I only have one comment on Villa, so I must have missed something.
Can you enlarge that a little bit? I'm having a hard time reading.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Good.
Whoops.
Could you not move it while I'm trying to erase?
Okay. I can't see my,
There
I
we
can't
go.
see anything. Hang on.
Sue, you are a true professional.
I don't like having to work all day and work all night.
Okay,
Okay.
how is this? Is this better?
Yeah, I can read that. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I can't zoom in on this. Can't see my controls because this bar's up here.
I think on Villa, I wanted to make sure that we, maintain that field.
Oh, I didn't write that, but I will. So the reason I didn't write that is because it was in the notes from the project team.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll just reiterate, retain green buffer between parking lot and street. How on earth did I get that?
Yeah, is there a consensus on putting the amenities toward the middle of the park, or
I don't want them all grouped together like that.
like they are now?
Well, on A, it's all lumped together. And I agree with Beverly. I think that could be problematic.
Sue, I don't disagree with that, but the other thought I have about Villa is that it's a narrow park. And I wonder if putting those amenities on the side will make it even more narrow. I think what's nice about Villa is that, at least you have that big expanse before you get in. And I'm wondering if you cut that by a third, if it'll look, I don't know, visually look a little too tight.
I'd like to see a plan. I just want to stay away from exactly what Beverly said, is if I rent that pavilion, I don't know that I want everyone else in the park who's there to play or whatever, all centered right in that area. That's just a lot of concentration of people potentially.
And Bev, why did your park people not want some of the amenities closer to the parking lot again, the Concept C?
Oh, Concept C, because we feel like it would pull all the activity here, and then your kids playing right next to a parking lot.
Yeah.
But, and
Splash
then
pad's
also
here,
the
everything's here.
and the distance for younger kids to the restroom,
Yeah, get
Yeah.
into the restroom, particularly
particularly with the splash pad and.
the minute they're in their bathing suit in the splash pad, you know they have to go to the bathroom.
And
So-
there's no way to, if we did like a combo of concept A, you couldn't throw anything on the other side of the park? Like, what?
Well,
I know
what
you
we-
said the splash pad can't go there, but why
Yeah.
couldn't one of the other playgrounds be relocated there?
Well, we, there are strong feelings on the project team that because of parents with multiple age kids, that having the amenities close together. So if you have a
Yeah.
4-year-old and a 6-year-old and they're playing for playgrounds, that whoever the caregiver is can see both at the same time. So that's that directive where they're saying keeps some adjacency.
But I don't see that problem being solved in concept B, because that's a long.
Oh, yeah,
stretch.
no, but concept B, so that was rejected by the project team. The project team asked us to take A and B with the amenities and kind of do a mix where there's a little bit more spread out. It's not as concentrated as here, but not as long as the,
But they haven't done that yet.
no,
No.
yeah, we haven't, yeah,
So
they're
to
just getting the
Ed's-
initial feedback.
So to Ed's point, I'd like to see what that would look like.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that's the one I'll vote for.
Okay.
Well, that's what I want to see, right? And get a feel for that.
So what, a combination of A and B? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I want to see is they take the idea of spreading it out, but not spreading out as far as B.
Okay.
And that's why I was saying possibly move something to the other side, to the east side. But again, to Ed's point, does that make the area too narrow and does that not work?
How do folks feel about moving stuff to the north?
It starts to go downhill, so that's my
Yeah.
concern.
There's two issues back there. One is the slope.
Mhm.
It's not flat back there, number one. And number two, you have a good tree canopy and it's very shaded back there, which may not be ideal for some stuff. Like Beverly said, the splash pad, not
Well,
a good plan.
But conceivably, we could put play structures back there.
Yeah, but you've got that slope. So the question is, can you do something with the slope?
And having spent a great deal of time in that park, I'm not sure the slope is as extensive as people are. It goes off.
I don't know. Walk back there and think, how are you going to put a level playground?
Yep.
Well, this area is, so here's the topography. This is a nice flat area right here.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll remind us too that we had a presentation about accessible playgrounds that actually a slope was needed. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can enter the playground from the high ground and be able to then, integrate with the rest too. So
That's
I
Right.
think there's lots of ways that you can work with the typography. I think the issue is spreading out the play areas. And I think
Okay.
having a play area on each side of the pavilion solves a lot of problems. It doesn't have to be a big play area. Yeah, I've said enough. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. But that does bring up the point of disabled playground we have not talked about, which does the commission have I don't want to put you on the spot. I want you to start thinking about it when we, this is high level concept stuff. When we start to actually design those playgrounds, start thinking in your mind which park you want to have a more accessible playground.
What wasn't the original plan for Warson to have the accessible playground in Morrison Park?
I can't remember. I know Stacy has an adaptive playground, but it's not the full accessible one that the commission was advocating for.
I thought that the initial plan had that off of Grandview in Warson Park.
I'll have
but
to
I
look
could be
through.
wrong.
I don't remember. I'll go back and look at it. Let me make that note here.
I think there was some conversation about Indian Meadows way back too. Because you're starting from scratch and there's really nothing, on the other end, the bigger field end.
Yeah, but I think the issue was the wetness in Indian Meadows.
Okay, there we go. I've got it in there.
Okay.
Make sure I take care of, whoops. There we go. Okay. All right. So have we met the directives? We talked about the parking lots. We talked about, is it necessary? Okay. Excellent. How did I write here again? I don't know. All right, future agenda items. We've got the annual, oh, I apologize, Jim. I jumped right ahead. I apologize.
Okay, any other questions on the master plan? I think there's some future agenda items. We keep kicking it down the road, but work plans, pretty much 2021 in terms of what we're going to be doing. A lot of what we're doing right now works toward that. The park tree updates, I think we've got a couple of things going there as far as what we
Yeah,
need.
Yeah, that'll be from the horticulturalist. He's going to, he's working on a plan right now. It may not be ready for December, but he wants to bring it, he wants everyone to be aware of when we start doing some tree removals, that we are educating everybody about why we're doing it and how we're doing it, so that we don't have a big outcry when large trees are being removed from the parks.
Right, and then I think the other one is the communications, how we're going to communicate.
Yes, yes.
In January, we're looking toward a community meeting to go over, not necessarily final plans, but to get reactions to pretty much final plans.
Yeah, yeah. I think that what'll be, we're going to be really figuring out how to have that public participation meeting. And I've been playing around with rooms in Zoom. Have any of you used rooms?
I have.
Okay. Do you think that, so when we have our big meetings and we have the boards up and people walk up to the board and they write in things, they write what they like or just dislike on different plans, could the rooms in Zoom fulfill that function?
Yes, it can be a little tricky depending on your functionality of Zoom. You can manually assign, but then you have to know where they want to go, if that's what you're talking about. And that can be kind of it can take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But maybe your Zoom has more features than what I'm used to, but because you can't add rooms once you've already made them, at least I can't. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we need to have more than one Zoom. So every discussion we have, I want it to have the community center and all the parks on it. I don't want to have like tonight's Villa, tomorrow night's Indian Meadows. I really want, the way we did the master plan, we did all the parks at once. And I want to continue that process because I think it got the greatest amount of participation. And then it prevented any one park being, totally skewed by, only the people that live next door to it or something like that. But I think it really, because our goal is to bridge these barriers between neighborhoods, between Olive, north and south, between Dealman, east and west. So by having one meeting for all the parks, I think really drives that home, that these parks are for the entire city. But maybe we need to have more than one if we do have to do the rooms, so that if people only had time to talk about one park and the next one they can talk about another. But I don't know how we would structure that. I don't know how we would.
Well, Bev, the way I do it with students, if you have like 5 or few choices, if you have 5 rooms, let's say, or 4.
Okay.
You use the participants box and you assign some of those graphics to a particular park. So what I do in my class is that, the no button would equal breakout room number 1, which would be listed as, people that need help with this, right? And
Okay.
then yes would be, so you assign that, you have a graphic that shows it. Then when people get into the meeting, the first thing they do is that they click on one of those. So you say, oh, all the blue hands, oh, that's Villa Park. All the no's, I know this has to be that, are Indian Meadows Park. And you can easily put them into those separate breakout rooms as they come in. And then when they're all in, you just click done, and then they all go to those rooms. You
Okay.
can also move people then once they're in the room. You know, they can send a chat and say, oh, I got into the wrong room. You can easily change them and put them into the right place.
Okay.
So it's a structure that I've used, but then again, my capability with Zoom is not as extensive as what you guys have at the city. So I don't
Okay.
know what else you might
Well, I
have.
think that's a really good start. And then we could have a commissioner in each room to be the facilitator.
Mhm.
Okay. And then we can have time limits. And then I think probably the community center is one big discussion. And then we have 5 rooms for the 5 parks.
Yeah, and my experience has been with rooms is you need to make sure you leave enough time,
Mhm.
because I've been on Zoom calls where basically the calls, you get called back to the main menu too quickly.
Okay. Okay. All right. But I'm excited about it. I think it might be a nice way we can kind of try and replicate that in-person meeting.
Yeah.
So-
Rob, did you have something? Rob, I saw your hand up. Okay. And Beverly, can you talk about upcoming dates?
Yes. Okay. So virtual turkey trot, woohoo! If you haven't registered, please do. Jim's got his shirt on. They're gorgeous. Also, out in the parks, you'll see those giant billboards in every park for the turkey trot. Those are selfie boards. So you take a picture of yourself and it's got the hashtags on it. So you can tag it and put it up on Facebook or Instagram. No one's really doing it. I don't know why, but that's what those are there for. Drive-in movie, we're hanging. We don't know what's going on. Weed Warriors, I forgot to put the makeup date this weekend. Ed can't be there, which is devastating loss. So someone needs to take his place. I'm looking at all of you. Dawn can't. And then winter day camp, we don't know what's going on. We still don't have a date for the January informational meetings, but I'm working hard to get those going.
Okay.
All right.
Is there any other business come before the commission? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I
I
move
make
to
a motion to adjourn.
Second, Ed moved, Sue seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very
you.
much. I really appreciate your feedback.
Okay, take
Very,
care.
very happy Thanksgiving, everyone, if I don't see you between now and then.
Okay,
You too. Okay, bye
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
thank you.
Bye,
Good night.
everybody. Good night.